All right, Panther Lair, I wanted to do a voice overlay for something that really jumped out at me when Pitt played Purdue Fort Wayne this past Wednesday. I do also want to take the time here quickly to thank you guys for subscribing to the channel. I think we have 20 new subscribers in the month of December. So as you know, if you are subscribed, you are getting these videos probably a day or two early. They're always going to appear on Panther Lair in an article. But again, as a thank you to you guys for subbing, I wanted to do a voice overlay, not just because this was an interesting thing, but also as a thank you for those of you who have been subbing to the channel and again always reading and supporting my content. So this is something that I thought was interesting because I think Purdue really showed their hand for how teams may defend the flare screener when Pitt runs ball screen situations, and especially when it's like Guillermo Diaz-Graham or Blake Hinson or even Jorge, as they tend to flare out of screens and have open three-point looks. So clearly this is something that Purdue Fort Wayne scouted, and let's take a look at 3 sequences in which they kind of defended this differently than some other teams in the past. At least the first 2 sequences are going to be very similar. The third sequence in here is going to be something that I think teams are going to do against Bub Carrington and his jump passes, but we'll get into that. Let's take a look at the first one here. So what you're going to see, this isn't quite turned into a screen situation because it's like these ghost screens that Guillermo likes to set, right? So it's like a ghost flare. He sets this here, flares out, but you'll see that Purdue Fort Wayne was ready with a high tag from the weak side slot. So we've talked a little bit about how like exchanges can impact things here. A lot of time you're doing that to manipulate the low man if this is going to be a roll, but maybe an exchange makes sense here to kind of manipulate who is going to tag Guillermo. But in doing that, because this team is showing their hand and they usually want to send 2 to the ball on Bub Carrington in some fashion, Jorge is going to cut right through here as this stunt and recovery attempts to happen, and he ends up getting a layup here from his brother Guillermo on the nice assist. Now, of course, we know against better competition, more athletic competition, maybe that doesn't turn into a finish, but the Panthers are going to have to do this more and more and more if teams are going to use like this high tag against the flare guy. So let's take another look at that in the second half here. This time it's going to be with Jalen Lowe. Again, a ball screen situation, but it's going to be this like ghost flare right there. Ghost flare, 2 go to the ball, and you're going to see again this weak side slot defender. He is going to do a high tag here, kind of a stunt in recovery to give Guillermo something to think about so he doesn't just shoot the ball. But instead, Lowe makes this nice pass because this is timed well. Austin cuts right here into the middle of the floor. He makes a nice turnaround pass to Bub, knowing exactly where his teammate is, and we see a rare dunk and finish from Bub. But I think the point there is that teams are going to try to find a way to not allow Guillermo or Jorge, or especially Blake Hinson, to just launch threes unabated at the top of the circle. So I think you're going to see that high tag or stunt and recovery, and the player that's in that weak side wing slot position, they're going to have to cut on this. And I think if Pitt has already seen that, then they're practicing it, and I think this is something you're going to see going forward. Now let's take a look at that sequence I talked about with Bub Carrington and how teams are probably going to defend his jump passes. If you watch Pitt, you know that Bub probably throws 5 to 10 of these a game. It stands out. It's like his biggest signature in terms of how he likes to connect with players out of pick and roll. And so this would be something I think about how to defend. Now, I feel like Purdue Fort Wayne is the first team to attempt this. They may have only done this once. I definitely pulled this one because it caught my eye immediately. But you're going to see this peel switch. So with Hinson here, he's going to flare. 2 are going to go to the ball. So this player is going to fight over, and the screener's defender, Hinson's defender, he's just going to try to contain under. So this isn't going to be a hedge. This ends up being a switch, though, because it looks like 2 go to the ball, but then he's going to peel back switch. So this is a peel switch, and because of that, and Bub just thinks, hey, Hinson's going to be wide open here. There's actually a defender here. Hinson does a good job of running this down, so it's not a turnover. But again, better athletes, better competition. This is probably going to be a steal and dunk on the other end. This is something that if I was an opposing team, I would definitely put on the tape and say, hey, we're going to try to peel switch a few times here against Bub, against these jump passes, and see where this leads us, especially when he's so adverse to drive the ball. That's the other thing too. If Bub's not going to attack the switch, then this is a win for the defense pretty much every time. Or if he's going to settle for an outside jumper, which is later in this article, you'll see that was one of my dislikes. So this is something I think the defense is going to be willing to live with, and it's something that Pitt needs to take a look at and say, okay, well, how can we adjust going forward? Again, guys, that's pretty much all I have for this one. Thank you guys for reading and supporting my content. I wanted to get a little bit more detailed here, again, as a thank you for subbing to my channel, and again, supporting all my content on Panther Lair.